Hey everyone, this is Jeff with Fluent American.
Hi, my name is Anna.
我是奔放。
Ciao, io mi chiamo Fuling.
I started teaching English as a second language in 2010.
I live and work in St. Petersburg, Russia. I teach English and German to Russian speakers from beginner to upper intermediate level.
Cosa insegno? Una lingua bellissima, che è quella che sto usando, l'italiano.
I'm a certified Confucius Institute teacher, and I have been teaching Chinese Mandarin for over 10 years.
Quali sono le mie attività preferite da fare con gli studenti? Conversazione principalmente.
My favorite activity to do with my students is practicing listening skills with the help of the wonderful website called Play.it, where I create tasks for my students.
Di che cosa si parla? Beh, diciamo che a seconda di chi ho di fronte si possono trovare argomenti in comune, passioni, interessi che abbiamo tutti e due, altrimenti si può fare conversazione su temi di attualità. Diciamo che le notizie non mancano mai sui giornali e su internet, da cui prendere spunto per fare una chiacchierata.
It's very basic. Have them just describe a picture. One of the things I see with students is get really good at describing more abstract concepts. They could talk about government, they could talk about politics, environmental issues. But then if you hold up an item from your kitchen, they may struggle to express that vocabulary.
That's a lot of things I like to do. The number one activity I like to do, especially with my total beginner students, I love to do immersive classroom with them. I like to exclusively speak Chinese Mandarin. When they start their very first lesson, the first second we are already started doing Chinese and speaking Chinese. And I love to see my students from zero level and reach to a native speaker fluency with just my facial expressions and hand gestures and some supporting objects and materials. So that's one favorite part I like to do. It's more like an acting class, and I really enjoy the interaction with my students while I was doing that.
Common difficulties my students have is, well, they find it hard to use articles and present tense because we simply don't have them in the Russian language. And another thing they find difficult is to speak a foreign language during the lesson without saying a word in Russian because they know that I speak Russian too.
La lingua italiana non è una lingua semplice, specialmente se i miei studenti sono madrelingua che non parlano una lingua di origini latine. Spesso si dimenticano che bisogna coniugare sia i verbi con i complementi oggetto e anche i vari aggettivi. Io non posso dire la mia casa è bello perché casa è femminile, mentre bello è maschile singolare. E qualche volta si dimenticano.
Pronunciation again, especially with regards to English vowel sounds, because English vowel sounds tend to be a little bit different than the vowels you see in other language groups. Like, no matter if my students are Russian speakers or Romance language speakers or Chinese speakers, they tend to all struggle with some very common vowel sounds, like man versus men, sit versus seat, like low versus law. Like, these are very common things no matter what people's language groups tend to be.
I think it's the pronunciation because many of my students, most of them are paying too much attention on the pinyin and the tones, and they are putting too much stress on the individual pinyin. They can pronounce a character perfectly. However, if you put in a full sentence, if you give everything of a perfect pronunciation, that sounds still strange of a whole sentence.
One thing I wish my students would do.
I wish students would do more shadowing exercises. Shadowing exercises are when you listen to something and then you immediately repeat what you hear. And this is such a great way to improve your pronunciation, your intonation, the rhythm of how you speak, things like that, so that way you start sounding more natural.
That's a very good question. I would like my students to listen more how Chinese people speaks. Some audios in textbooks are not really good because they are trying to help you to listen clearly the pronunciation of each individual character again. It's not the real conversation. Again, I would like to my students to watch more Chinese movies and TV series to get a feel of how in real life we speak.
I wish my students did their homework on a regular basis, and my adult students in particular.
Allora, io devo essere sincera, sono molto fortunata. Insegnando nel fine settimana ho studenti che, scegliendo anche loro il loro fine settimana, il loro giorno libero, sono studenti che si impegnano molto. Invece di uscire, scelgono di approfondire e studiare questa bellissima lingua.
Speaking of my worst teaching moment,
For a worst teaching moment, I remember one of my first years of teaching, I was working with adults and we were reading a story, and I wanted them to do a character map to kind of identify the traits associated with the character. And for that activity, I had basically a paper that had a kind of a big figure of a person. And I think one of my students looked at it from a distance and he's like, this looks very childish, so I think that really stuck with me, because the activity itself wasn't childish in terms of identifying the traits, but presentation is always important, so that's always something I'm kind of thinking about.
Yeah, there was one time I remember there was a teenager in my class. In the very beginning of the class, he told me that, teacher, my throat, something is wrong. I cannot speak. Is it okay if I turn off my audio and video, and you just talk, and I will listen to you, because every time I speak, it's too painful for me. So in that scenario, without any audio and video, it was a horrible hour. That 1 hour, to me, it feels like 10 hours. And the misconception about Chinese?
Gli studenti che cominciano a studiare la lingua italiana pensano che sia un po' come nei film, quindi che metà sia un continuo gesticolare e l'altra metà sia tutto un cantare spaghetti, mandolino, pizza. Ma non è così, anzi, forse per chi non conosce la lingua può sembrare così, ma piano piano, quando uno comincia a approfondire, no? E capisce che non è proprio tutto un canticchiare.
Many people think that Chinese is too difficult to learn because the characters, they think, wow, there's no way they can study these languages. Actually, the grammar of Chinese is super, super easy, and you can learn the speaking Chinese without learning any characters. I have a lot of students study with me. They try the immersive classroom, and they can speak perfectly without knowing even one character. So as long as you learn for 1 hour, you will be surprised how much you can learn in just 1 hour, and you will be surprised in 10 hours you are already can order food, greeting to your friend, make plan with your friend, negotiate, do shopping in China, and you can speak a lot of things, and you can even create your own sentences in 30 hours.
The goal is to sound like a native speaker. Not just speak English, but actually sound like people from a country where it's spoken. There is European English, but that's a little different than the English you would find in the UK or Australia or the US. And to sound more native-like, you really need to boost your vocabulary. Things like phrasal verbs, idioms, collocations are extremely common, but when you look at people that are learning English, they tend not to study those things, or they wait till very late in their studies. So that's definitely something to consider.
So that's some online experiences.
If you have questions about online language learning, feel free to ask any of us. Or if you're interested in taking classes or finding out more about any of these other teachers, send me a message and I'll get you in touch.